Alrighty, y'all, so check it out. We're looking at forbidden muscle, at least for me here. This is 10 USA brand performance cars you couldn't buy in America. So basically, you know, brands that we're very familiar with here in the US. You know, I'm expecting like Chevy, Pontiac, you know, Chrysler, Mopar, Dodge, Ford, Mercury, you know, things like that, right? We had an amazing muscle car era, of course, in the 60s, 70s, and beyond. In the modern day, you could almost argue. But they're awesome cars that basically aren't sold or were never sold here in the U.S. And I just always find these very fascinating. So this is going to be a fun one, I think. I expect some results on here from, you know, Australia, New Zealand. I definitely expect that. I mean, they had an amazing muscle car scene at the, you know, similar era there. But other than them, it's going to be kind of interesting. I'm not sure if, like, we're talking somewhere in South America, somewhere in Europe. I really don't know. Anyway, this was suggested on Discord very recently by Aqua, so I do appreciate that. And it comes to us from a channel called Magna Loom. So make sure to use the link in the description down below. Check out this whole video uninterrupted, and I'm definitely browse their channel. Let's take a look. All right, here we go. A 1967 Beaumont.
It sort of looks like a Chevrolet Chevelle with completely wrong trim and badging.
Yeah.
It's actually a mashup hybrid creation of a Chevrolet Chevelle
Okay, and a Pontiac what? GTO?
and Pontiac Le Mans.
Or a Le Mans, I'm sorry. Le Mans. Not a full-on GTO, but a Le Mans. So yeah, these are American versions, mid-60s, like a 66 possibly.
With Chevrolet engine choices built on a Chevelle A-body
And there's a Beaumont. This was only from Canada.
intermediate platform. The interior was mostly from a Pontiac Le Mans, as were the exterior trim pieces, except for the grille and
Wow.
taillight housing, which were unique to the Beaumont. What made this even cooler was the availability of the Beaumont SD, essentially the equivalent of the Chevelle SS in the United States, with the L78 396 cubic inch 375 horsepower big block engine.
Okay, so awesome power plant, right? 396. How can you go wrong there? I do say it's a good looking car because, I mean, that era is just amazing, right? I mean,
For your trim pieces,
what's really not to like here? I will say it's a little bit, possibly like a classier, more chrome look than you might find on, you know, the very bright colored, you know, U.S. muscle cars at the time. But even disregarding the chrome and the color choice, it does just look like a kind of a subtle car. Maybe a regular person that isn't like a diehard car guy might not know that this had a pretty awesome motor under the hood, right? So, yeah, it's a good looking car. It's a little bit understated,
except
but
for the
it's
grille and
interesting to see.
taillight housing.
84 Chevy Monte Carlo SS.
Behold.
Okay, I wonder what this is about. We definitely had these in the U.S.
The 1984 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS. It looks like the US model,
Mexican
but it's
version.
not.
What?
It's a Mexican special, and had lots of subtle differences. If we compare the Mexican version and the US,
Okay. They look like they are definitely the same car. Okay. Differences. Doors, door handles the same, windows the same. They even got the same markers, right? Amber and red and back. I mean, wheels and tires are different. Tires don't even count because people can swap those. Assuming these are the stock wheels. I mean, obviously the wheels are different. Look at there. Look at that. The Mexican version is very interesting. The wheels, they're kind of cool. God, you know, I can't really tell any other differences. Wow.
version, the differences begin to materialize.
No rear spoiler,
Oh.
checkerboard pattern alloy wheels, minimal side graphics, and plain Jane mirrors.
Oh, yeah, less graphics. It just has the Monte Carlo SS. No striping at all. Yeah, and it is a different mirror. I like the US mirror better. It looks a little more legit. Spoiler doesn't matter to me. I mean, the spoiler is subtle, so I guess I'd prefer it with the spoiler, but it doesn't look bad without it.
Moving inside, we can see that the steering wheel is different.
Oh, dude.
There's no center console, no power windows, and the dashboard is from a Pontiac Grand Prix.
Don't tell me these came in freaking manuals. Are you serious? No, we never got that. By
The best
then.
part is that awesome 4-speed Hurst shifter. that tells you this car means business.
Oh, hell yeah.
So that's the Mexican Monte Carlo SS.
That's cool.
A rare and awesome machine that Chevy made for 1 year only.
I dig it. Now, seeing the wheels and then knowing it's a stick shift, that's freaking awesome, dude. Because, of course, we had manual transmission muscle cars, right? In the 60s, 70s. They were still more rare, but they were out there. But by this body style, I mean, we're talking mid-'80s here, right? That was getting hard to find already, especially in a Monte Carlo SS. I don't think we ever had that. So for this, year range, that's
maybe
very
they had some extra
interesting.
parts that they needed to use up. Or maybe they just loved Mexico. Either way, it's a cool car that deserves respect.
Yeah, they got a cooler version, honestly. Whoa, Chevrolet Opala?
Opala, a name that the Brazilian Chevrolet marketing department came up with for this small car. That seems to be a mashup of Opel and Impala.
It was derived from the European Opel Rockford and debuted in the Brazilian market in 1969 and was sold there until 1992 and had absolutely nothing to do with the U.S. Chevrolet Impala. Throughout its
Interesting.
model run, the Opala was
I mean, it looks a lot smaller than Impala, so yeah, definitely not the same car. It's obviously the slightly different name anyway. This is from Brazil. This is very interesting list so far.
available in sedan, coupe, and station wagon iterations.
Wow, I like the
The
wagon.
performance version was the SS variant with
Look
its
at that.
aggressive and sporty exterior styling and graphics, 4-speed manual transmission, and 4.1-liter six-cylinder engine that grew in power from 140 horsepower in 1970 up to
Okay, that version looked real neat.
153 horsepower in
Look at that.
1976.
Holy smokes.
No, we didn't get this one here in the land of Chevelle and Impala SSs, but maybe
Yeah,
we should have. Hasn't
I actually like the chassis on this. I like the size of it. The body looks nice. Now, of course,
Transmission.
I'm sure it's actually a fun car, and that engine looks cool in there. I love old engines regardless of what they are. But of course, it is an inline six, so I know this car is a lot smaller than a lot of U.S. muscle cars. I know it's lighter, so it probably scoots. Yeah, but then when he shows these, I mean, look at that Chevelle. That thing is a beaut. And remember, when we're talking old muscle cars, of course I love them all. Like, who doesn't? I mean, they're just awesome. It was just an amazing era. But I mean, I am more of like a diehard Mopar guy. And even as a Mopar guy, I mean, this Chevelle is just something else, right? It's so mean, it's so iconic, and that thing's got a humongous power plant, right? You had quite a few choices, and they were all pretty awesome. So in that case, I know it's not a direct comparison, but I'd take the Chevelle over something like this personally. I mean, just the engine choice alone, right? But I do like this. It's very interesting. Right, it is kind of neat. I wonder if it would have been cool if they had a really small V8 in here. Like if they could have shoehorned one in, that would have been
Or in
neat.
1976.
The Dodge Super Bee was a legendary American muscle car from the 1960s and early 1970s. That
Right.
was one of the quickest factory cars ever to devour the quarter mile.
God,
It
it
was
looks
also
so
quick to
good.
devour fuel and tires and make its owners' wallets cry like a baby.
Fuel was cheap back then, man.
Let's go down south and see what the Mexican version of the Super Bee looked like. Nope, not like this.
I mean, this is an American version. Damn. Damn.
Like this.
Ooh, okay, Mexico. Wow. Okay.
It looked nothing like the US B-body version at all.
Wow.
In fact, it was based on the A-body Chrysler platform of the Dodge Dart and Plymouth Duster.
Right.
Debuting in Mexico in 1970, this car was called the Valiant Super Bee, a sporty trim level
Pretty
of the
neat.
Valiant Duster. During the first half of the 1970s, it could be had with a 318 cubic inch engine good for
Okay.
270 horsepower.
Okay, there you go. We still got V8 in this one. Now, granted, it's a smaller one. 318, it's a workhorse. It'd be reliable. They're great motors. They made them absolutely forever, like into the early 2000s, I think. Absolute workhorse of a motor.
Why they didn't
But not big on power, though. I mean, considering you could get a 318 in smaller cars, but, so a lot of cars here, you would have been able to get a 360. You would have for sure gotten like a 383 or a 426 Hemi, a 440 big block, So, I'm seeing a lot more smaller engines, which I guess I'm not surprised, right? We had the big engines here, and I still think that plays a part, right? It almost sets the muscle car scene here apart a little bit as just like the big bad muscle, you know?
Call this the Spanish equivalent of the Super Bee is a mystery to us. But then in 1975, things got spicy. They upgraded to a 360 cubic inch engine that cranked out 300 horsepower.
There we go.
That's
a
more
little
than
better.
any Duster in the U.S. could ever have dreamt of at the time.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive now. So you do take this smaller chassis, right? This is, of course, smaller than a Charger, smaller than the Coronet. Taking that into account, this is smaller than a lot of the U.S. muscle cars. This thing would have scooted for sure. I think this would have been a hell of a fun car to drive. Having that little more of a tighter chassis, a little bit smaller, and it has these good looks to it. And the 360 under there's now that's pretty big for this car, so that's more like it, right? You don't need the 440 in here. Like this 360 would be fun. So this is pretty cool. I did not know about these.
So if you wanted a real A-body factory hot rod in the 1970s, you had to go south of the border and get yourself a Mexican Super Bee.
Very interesting. Acadian what?
We go back to Canada during the 1960s for the Acadian Canso.
Wow.
This one sort of looks like a Chevy 2 from the 1960s, but something is a little off. First, there's the front grille, which appears Pontiac-inspired, with the center portion splitting it into two halves. Moving around back, the taillights weren't swiped from the Chevy 2, but seemed to be unique to the Canso.
Wow.
The exterior trim and badging is also exclusive for the Canada-only Canso. Unlike the American Chevy 2, the Canso wasn't available with the high-performance SS option. Don't feel sad for our Canuck brethren, though. They could still outrun a moose with their own Canso high-performance option, the Sport Deluxe, or SD. If you had enough loonies to spare, the SD was available with the L79 327 cubic inch 350 horsepower V8.
Damn.
Straight from the Corvette.
Now that's interesting, right? Cool tidbit at the end about the engine. 327 in that car, that is interesting. But other than that, you know, even the American version, right? The Chevy 2 and all that, the Novas, like, these don't really do anything for me. So nothing against the car, and I'm sure a lot of people love these, and that's fine. These, yeah, this one doesn't do much for me at all.
Straight from the Corvette.
Whoa, Chevrolet SS, that's it? Just SS? Wow, from South Africa. Holy smokes. This is interesting.
This car is from South Africa in the early 1970s.
What?
It's actually a rebadged and slightly redesigned Holden Monero HG.
There you go. Wow, South Africa beat us to it. We had a rebadged Australian Holden Commodore come over here in what would have been 2013 or 14 as a Chevy SS. Of course, before that, it was the Pontiac G8. Same car again, but just rebadged under Pontiac. And then Pontiac went under, and Chevy took it over and just called it just the SS, which was so weird and I think an odd choice. Honestly, I think a horrible marketing choice. Amazing car. Car guys here absolutely love them. But unfortunately, it's such a small niche that they did not sell well, and still you don't see them on the road much. And I think it was because of marketing. They could have called it something else, and it probably would have sold more. You know, they didn't advertise them at all, and the people who did see them were like, "What's that?" And they'd be like, "Oh, it's a Chevy SS," and people didn't know what they were talking about because there's so many SS models. Like there's an HHR SS, there's a Chevy Camaro SS, right? There's a Silverado SS. You know, you get the point. So it was a horrible decision. Now, quite frankly, this is an odd name as well, Chevy SS, but this is way before, and this is from South Africa. And indeed, it's not a rebadged Commodore, but rather a rebadged Monaro. Really interesting.
G series from Australia that was marketed as a Chevrolet with a fake American smile. Looking at it, one can see the attempt at imbuing some American styling in the front of the car. The grille and quad headlight treatment somewhat resemble those of the 1966 American Chevelle with the familiar SS badging. And
I gotta say, now remember, this is South Africa. This is not in the U.S. But this South Africa car, this obviously this is a reskinned Australian car. It is more American looking than the Holden would have been. Yeah, of course, Holden had their own identity. They had their own design language. So the Australian muscle is like, from my perspective, like familiar as an American. It's comfortable. It's like, I love learning about their muscle cars because they're still muscle cars. But they're slightly different than ours, right?
Why would they need those, one might wonder?
Because the SS was available with a Holden 308 cubic inch V8
Cool.
or the mighty American Chevrolet 350 cubic inch V8,
Awesome.
generating 300 horsepower and required lots of air instantly available to breathe in when the go pedal got mashed.
Yeah, I'd say either engine choice is a win there too, right? We all know the 308 has a great reputation. I've learned a decent amount about it. Sounds great as well. And who can argue with the 350, man? It's like the most reliable engine of all time, if you ask me.
We head back to South Africa for this next one, and it's
Really?
another Chevrolet.
Dude, this thing looks tiny.
This one has race heritage
Oh,
connections,
look
as
at
it was
that.
a homologation special that was limited to just 100 copies that were sold to the public.
What?
It also has a secret under its hood that comes right from a 1960s-era American pony car. Derived from the British Vauxhall Firenza, it was rebranded as the Chevrolet Firenza for the South African market,
Wow.
and offered with some lackluster four-cylinder engine choices and a range of body styles, none of which got anybody's pulse racing.
Right.
The hot one to have was the 1971 through 72 Firenza Can-Am with the engine from the stateside Trans Am series Camaro Z28s.
The Z28's
Whoa.
302 cubic inch engine delivered 290 high revving horsepower to the rear wheels of this race-tuned corner carver
Dude,
that
that's
only weighed in at
awesome.
around 2,000 pounds. Of course it was wicked fast.
Dude, look
could
at it
sprint
go.
from 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds and hit over 140 miles per hour.
Holy shit. That's freaking awesome. Oh my God. Yeah, there we go.
Well,
I
here's
was
one
waiting
that-
for Australia.
Car chase action movie fans from around
Look, OGs of this channel know, a lot of Australians and Kiwis know. Oh my God, I freaking love this mean looking Falcon. I think a lot of people do. This Falcon from Mad Max, look at that beast.
the globe will recognize the Australian market Ford Falcon.
Damn.
The one driven in the first and second Mad Max films was a modified 1973 Ford Falcon XB GT.
Look at this thing, even in stock form. Damn, that thing looks good.
It definitely didn't look like the US market Falcon that only
No.
sold from 1960 to 1970,
No, it looked more like a Gran Torino here.
especially in the 1970s onward. But it did resemble the Mustang Milano concept car that Ford showed in the early 1970s here in the States.
In Australia, it was available from 1960 through 2016 in sedan, estate wagon, coupe, utility, and GT flavors.
I love it.
The GT models definitely packed a wallop. In fact, the 1971 XY GT HO Phase 3 was a homologation version sold to the public for race eligibility.
Yep.
It was
for
upgraded over
big
the
money.
standard GT with an underrated 300 horsepower, 351 cubic inch Cleveland engine, and considered the world's fastest four-door production car at the time, capable of taking on Ferraris and Aston Martins on the racetrack.
That's
These
crazy.
days, the ones that still exist are incredibly rare and expensive collector cars.
Oh yeah, they are. That's what I've learned. Dodge Charger. Okay, what is this? Charger really close to me. It's, arguably, I don't know if I could narrow it down, but I guess you could say it might be favorite muscle car of all time. Of course, we're talking about old Chargers, not the new era ones. The American Charger was just, it was so good. Now, of course, they did have a different, totally different car that was also marketed as the Charger in Australia. So that was really cool to learn about. And then this is a Dodge Charger RT from Brazil. So the Charger was worldwide, but I think it varied a little bit. Because that is definitely different than
Arriving
ours.
at number 2 on our list, we think this one is pretty special and a little mind-blowing.
Pretty cool, though.
Everyone can recall what the US version of the Dodge Dart looked like from the late 1960s.
Yeah, the Dart.
But
right.
in Brazil, Chrysler decided to go in a different styling direction entirely.
They used the Dart body that we're oh so familiar with, but changed the name to the Charger
That's
and
weird.
added a flying buttress rear window treatment,
Oh, yeah.
headlights that were covered by a full
I mean, I like this treatment in front.
width grille, and unique stripes along the sides.
In 1971, they released the Charger RT, their performance model that included a 215 horsepower, 318 cubic inch engine with dual exhaust and a 4-speed manual transmission.
I mean, it's
At
a
the
cool
time,
car.
the Charger was considered the fastest car that one could buy in Brazil.
That's
They stopped
awesome.
making it after a few years, and now it's a rare gem that only a few lucky collectors can own.
Very neat. Australia in the #1 spot, and there it is. The Chrysler Valiant Charger. Totally different than ours, but very interesting car. I hope he mentions that this had a Hemi in it, but not the Hemi that a lot of Americans like me would think of. No, this was a 6-cylinder Hemi. And I've seen videos of this thing. This thing slaps. This had some power. I don't know how the hell they did it in the 6-cylinder in the era of big V8s, but this thing, it moved. Look at that.
Coming
Pretty
in
good
at number
looking,
one,
too.
the Chrysler Valiant Charger. No, not the yawn-inducing Plymouth that Americans had to put up with for 16 years. This is the Aussie Valiant, mate.
Damn.
And it's a bloody ripper. You could get it as a sedan, a wagon, a coupe.
Again, remember, I'm never like negative, but I'm just joking around here. But boy, some of these accents or like jokes or whatever, the voiceovers here is killing me, man. It's cracking me up. Yeah, look at this lineup. Gotta love the Ute, right? Australia always had cool options, you know? You have sedans, coupes, wagons, Utes. I mean, that just defeats us right there. We didn't have Utes all over the place, car-based Utes, especially like that. So just love learning about these, man.
Or a Ute.
They're awesome.
But who cares about that? We're here for the performance. That's why we're focusing on the early 70s when the Valiant went full beast mode and unleashed the Charger RT. Look at this beauty. It's like a mini-me version of the 1966 through 67 Dodge Charger.
Yeah, that's
the best
true.
Of the best was the 1972.
Because I always, when I talk Charger, I'm always talking 68 through 70, right? Wasn't a big fan of the 71 and onward, and I never really thought of that comparison. It is a little more like sort of the lines and size of the first gen, although this looks more sporty, right? It looks better.
Dude, Valiant Charger RT.
But Ultimate Charger, sorry guys, for me, the American market, 68 through 70, you can't beat it. That Charger is just perfection in muscle car.
The E49
for me.
option.
But this
That
one
gave
is
you a
damn
Hemi
good.
6-pack engine. No, not the one you might be thinking of. This one was a straight 6 with a
Yes.
Hemi head and 3 side draft Weber carburetors that pumped out 302 horsepower.
Pretty cool.
It also
honestly.
had all the other goodies you'd
They
want in a
sound
muscle
good.
car, like a 4-speed manual transmission, a limited slip differential, and disc brakes. Some say it's the greatest Aussie muscle car ever made.
Ooh.
We say it's bloody awesome.
I'm going to let you guys fight that out in the comments.
That's it for now, folks.
That's a pretty bold claim, but it is a really cool one. And as a Mopar guy,
We say
awesome to learn about. Really neat car. I love the fuel cap on the back there. So there you go. That was a really interesting list. Brazil had some really cool entries in here. Of course, Mexico had some really interesting differences. And they always got, I know of even other instances not featured here. They get a lot of cool SUVs and trucks that we don't get in the U.S. So Mexico has some really cool car market as well. And then, of course, South Africa with some really interesting surprises in there. Australia knew they would be in here. Quite frankly, I thought they'd be in here even more. I'm sure you could make a list like this 3-4 more times, right? But there it is. I mean, leave your comments down below where you're watching from, and if you remember these cars, or if you were in a market that didn't get these and you've heard about them and always wanted them. Like I said, for muscle, that being very specific, we did have an awesome muscle car market here in the U.S. But of course, there's still cars we didn't get, and there are some really good ones that it's like, wow, we missed out. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. It'll be linked down there. Make sure to check them out, and please throw a thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to be part of this amazing community we do have here. It's about it for this one, y'all. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker, and until next time, I'll catch you later.